Hey guys, Matt Gunn here for FlyingGiants.com. I'd like to welcome you again to another video review. And this time we have a brand new design in the 30cc category from our friends at RedwingRC. This is the 76-inch MXS-Bach Fusion concept, and it takes its design cues from two aircraft that are modeled quite extensively in our industry, the MXS-R and the S-Bach. Now just by looking at the plane, you can see the styling from both is quite evident. Up front, you have the cowl that is pretty much all MXS-R with that classic round air intake on either side and below the prop. Now the fuselage is about 50% of each, I would say. We have the long raked forward cockpit from the S-Bach, coupled with the longer tail moment of the MXS-R and the longer turtle deck. The wings have that classic S-Bach taper with the swept-back wing tips from the MXS-R, and the tail section is pretty much all S-Bach. So all in all, the elements of both planes are combined into the MXS-R Fusion concept, and RedwingRC touts this airframe as having the performance elements from both. So we'll definitely test that out during the review later. But for now, we're going to take a closer look at the components. We'll see what's included. We'll go over the fit and finish, and in the second part of the review, we'll fully assemble it and get it ready for the maiden. And finally, in our third part, we'll cover flight performance. So let's go ahead and get started and take a look at the RedwingRC MXS-Bach 30cc Fusion concept. Alright, let's start at the front and work our way back. The cowl, like I said earlier, is pretty much an exact copy of an MXS-R cowl. It's got those classic air intakes cut out on the either side of the prop and the bottom. It's got some really nice curves to it, and it attaches at the top of the cowl on the back side with a pair of screws, and then down here, which I haven't drilled out yet, there's another mount. So it's got 4 bolts that hold the cowl in. So let's go ahead and take these off. Alright, it hooks on. As you can see, it bolts on either side. And then right here are your mounts. These are pretty sturdy. I've seen ones before that just have the tabs coming out. These have these little braces that go across the back here that definitely help keep it sturdy with all the vibrations. And one thing again that I like about the cowl, not only the looks but the fact that these air intakes are cut out very nicely. I've seen some other ones that aren't cut out. They have the molding flange inside of them, and they really restrict air, so you have to get in there with a Dremel and Dremel that out. But these come finished. It looks great. There's no bad fiberglass at all. This is a good looking cowl, and the gold matches the covering perfectly. So, all right, moving on to the firewall, you can see it is marked out for a DLE 30, and we'll be using a DA 35. So the mounting pattern should be pretty close to similar to that, not going to be a problem. You've got these holes here that are pre-drilled, and on the inside is an aluminum piece of L channel that adds a little bit of structural support. So after you get everything bolted up, you can add that in to sandwich it all together. On top, there's actually a cover that goes on here that once you get your ignition and your throttle servo put in and all that sort of stuff, you can cover that up to prevent the air from going into the fuselage. And at the bottom here, we have our tune pipe tunnel. And you also have a cover included that you can cover that up as well if you're not going to be using it. Inside the fuselage, you can see the stock tank is pre-installed. We'll be pulling that one out and using a 16-ounce tank from Tail Dragger RC. So the bracing inside looks really good. There's absolutely no issues at all that I can see. Lots of glue has been used throughout, so I just don't see any problem. There you go, there's a shot of some of the epoxy. Sometimes you get problems with too little epoxy being used when these kits are being put together, and this MXS-Bach is definitely not the case. The canopy mounts with these 2 dowels up front and 2 tabs in the rear with blind nuts. So all you need to do once you put it down is use an X-Acto knife to cut out the holes right here, and you can screw them in with your thumbs. Moving on to the tail section, I wanted to show you these fiberglass base plates that are on the horizontal stabilizers. This is a nice feature because sometimes you see them made out of wood, and they'll end up cracking a lot when you tighten down these bolts on here. So you have your carbon fiber locator dowel up front and you're using a spar across. This is pretty standard procedure for most 3D planes, especially in this 30cc size. It fits very nicely in, and then once you've got it installed, you just screw them down here. So we also have the rudder pull system is already pre-run and crimped, and it's hanging out the bottom down here. If you can see that, comes that way from the factory. And then you use a single servo per elevator on each side. The carbon fiber landing gear bolted on without a problem. It uses 4 bolts here and then lock nuts on the other side with some aluminum C-channel to sandwich it all together. And just like the rest of this ARF, putting on the wheel pants and getting the wheels bolted onto the landing gear was pretty painless. Alright, taking a look at the main wing here. Like I said earlier, this is pretty much right off of an S-Bach. It's very wide at the root and tapered toward the end here. However, it does have these swept-back winglets that are more in line with the MXS-R. So it's got these side fences here, side force generators, I meant to say, and they do not come installed, nor are the holes poked in the covering, so you don't have to run them. But once you poke these holes and put it in here, you're pretty much set with them unless you want to cover up these holes later for not running them. So they mount easily, and they are a little bit fragile, so you do have to take care if you're transporting. I would suggest maybe taking them off or transporting them in such a way that they don't touch anything. And then the only other area that's kind of fragile on the whole plane other than the side force generators is this piece right here. Now this is just a single piece of light ply, and it can bend pretty easily, so or break. So just be careful when you're transporting the plane around. But you know, pretty standard mounting procedure. You have your carbon locator dowels up front, your carbon fiber wing tube that goes down the middle. And then we also have on the bottom side here your servo mounts, and these come pre-made. There you are, and even though that angled piece looks a little rough, it hadn't been finished, it's still very strong. So these should hold well, no need to do any additional gluing or anything like that. These are perfect for this size aircraft. And all of the hinges do not come, and let's go ahead and take this piece off here. All the hinges do not come glued, so they pull right out. And as you can see, we have, let's see if I can get this off easily. We have 7 hinges per aileron, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So very sturdy. These hinges look good. They're Robart style hinges. Copies obviously, but they work perfectly. There's no need to change these up for anything. Now finally, in the kit we have our hardware package. It does come with a throttle servo mount. Like I said earlier, we have these covers here for the top of the Firewall, or excuse me, for the top of the engine mount and for the tune pipe cover. It does come with carbon fiber control horns that bolt directly onto your existing control horns, and all of your horns for your control surfaces, which are made of fiberglass and then painted gold to match the trim of the plane. And then last but not least, we have this 256 rod that is part of the tail wheel assembly, which I didn't show you, but it mounts like this through the rudder, and then this piece hinges onto the tail wheel, so you can turn your rudder as such, and the tail wheel will turn. So that concludes our unboxing review of the RedwingRC MXS-Bach. And based on my initial impressions, I can say pretty honestly that it's a well-built ARF with no quality control issues to note, and it seems to be strong enough without being overweight. Now there's a handful of covering wrinkles that I'll need to tighten up, but that's pretty much it. So stay tuned for part 2 of this review as I assemble the plane and install the DA35 and MKS servos. Thanks again for watching my review on FlyingGiants.com.